My daughter-in-law forbade me from seeing my grandchildren, so I sold the beach house where they spent holidays every summer. If you've ever been silenced, overlooked, or pushed aside, this story is for you. Don't forget to subscribe and comment. Now let me tell you my story. The knife slipped from my fingers and clattered against the marble countertop. I stared at my phone, unable to process the message on the screen. Decided to spend Christmas with our nuclear family this year. The kids have other plans. Merry Christmas. 11 cold words from Vanessa. 11 words to dismiss the week of preparation. The carefully wrapped gifts. The handwritten place cards. 11 words to tell me I wasn't needed this Christmas Eve. Around me, my dining room glowed with festive perfection, the table set for 8. Candles waiting to be lit. My special cranberry sauce cooling in crystal dishes. 8 place settings for a family that wasn't coming. With trembling fingers, I called Nathan. He picked up on the 4th ring, background noise suggesting he was already at a restaurant. "Mom, hi." His voice carried that familiar note of discomfort that appeared whenever he had to choose between me and Vanessa. "Did you get Vanessa's message?" "Nathan, what's going on? I've spent all week preparing. The presents are wrapped. Your favorite stuffing is ready to go in the oven. Vanessa thought it would be nice to create our own traditions this year. The kids are growing up. They have friends." He trailed off, the excuse paper thin. "But Melissa is flying in from Seattle. She'll be here in 2 hours. Yeah, about that. She, changed her plans too." The lie was obvious. I'd spoken to Melissa yesterday. She was excited about spending Christmas with us. After a terse goodbye, I stood motionless in my kitchen. My phone buzzed with a notification. With numb fingers, I opened Instagram to see a photo Vanessa had just posted my son, my grandchildren dressed in coordinating outfits. Seated at Auberge, the expensive French restaurant Vanessa had been hinting about for months. "Creating new family traditions. Blessed in family first," read the caption. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. This wasn't a last-minute change. This was planned. The doorbell rang. Melissa stood on my porch, suitcase in hand, confusion etched on her tired face. "Mom? Why are all the lights off? Is everything okay?" I pulled her into a hug. "Your brother and his family aren't coming. Vanessa decided they needed to create their own traditions this year." Melissa's expression hardened. "And no one told you until today? Or me before I got on a plane?" She pushed past me, taking in the elaborate decorations, the perfectly set table. "You've outdone yourself, Mom. It looks beautiful. For nothing," I whispered, tears finally breaking free. "Not for nothing. We're here, aren't we? Let's have Christmas, just us." "What about David?" I asked about her boyfriend. "Last-minute work emergency, allegedly." She forced a smile. "So it's a Sullivan girls' Christmas." Later, as we sat beside the tree with glasses of wine, picking at a pie meant for 8, Melissa asked the question hanging in the air between us. "Mom, how long has it been this way with Nathan? With Vanessa?" I stared into my wine, seeing not the deep red liquid, but the years of subtle exclusion, of invitations that came too late to accept, of family photos where I was positioned at the edge, easily cropped out. "It's been happening so gradually, I barely noticed," I admitted. First, it was just small things, Vanessa rescheduling dinners, filtering what information reached me about the grandkids. Then suddenly, I realized I was on the outside of my own family. Melissa reached for my hand. "We need to talk about this, Mom. Really talk about it." That night, as I lay awake, I made a silent promise to myself. This would be the last Christmas I spent feeling invisible in my own life. What I didn't realize then was how deeply the roots of manipulation had grown, or how painful it would be to tear them out. "Mom, Kyle got into 3 summer programs but we're still deciding," Nathan had texted 2 days ago. Yet here was Kyle's Instagram post, dated 3 weeks ago. "Harvard summer program, here I come. Accepted Detking summer plans." 3 weeks. My grandson had known for 3 weeks, and no one had told me. "Is everything okay?" Melissa asked, finding me at the kitchen table 3 days after Christmas, still in my bathrobe despite the late morning hour. I silently handed her my phone. She swiped through the posts, her expression darkening. "I've been replaced," I said flatly. "I'm the grandmother they visit out of obligation twice a year." "That's not true," Melissa began, but I cut her off. "It is true. Did you know Kyle got into Harvard's summer program 3 weeks ago, or that Emma had a dance recital? Because I didn't." Melissa set the phone down. "Mom, I think something strange is happening. Yesterday I called Nathan, and Vanessa answered. She said Nathan was too busy to talk, but I could hear him in the background asking who was calling. That doesn't surprise me, I said. Last month I tried to invite them for dinner, and Vanessa told me they were out of town. Then I saw Nathan at the grocery store that same evening. Have you tried reaching out to the kids directly? I nodded. Their responses are always delayed and brief. It's like they're being monitored. Melissa tapped her fingers on the table, a habit she'd had since childhood when she was thinking deeply. You know what this reminds me of? We had a case study in med school about emotional abuse patterns. The isolation of the victim from their support network is always the first step. I'm not being abused, I protested. Not physically, no, but cutting someone off from their family, controlling information flow, rewriting the narrative, that's textbook emotional manipulation. That afternoon, I drove Melissa to the airport. As we hugged goodbye, she pressed something into my hand, a small leather-bound notebook. Start writing, she whispered. Document everything that seems off, and consider recording important conversations on your phone. Washington is a one-party consent state. You think it's that serious? Her eyes were sad, but determined. I think your relationship with your grandchildren is at stake. 3 weeks later, I had filled half the notebook with dates, times, and descriptions of missed calls, declined invitations, and family events I discovered through social media rather than direct communication. The breaking point came when I showed up unannounced at their house, desperate to deliver Emma's birthday gift in person. Vanessa answered the door, blocking the entrance with her body. Through the gap, I could see Emma in the living room, looking up with surprise and what seemed like happiness. Eleanor, she said, my name sounding like an infectious disease on her lips. We're quite busy at the moment. You should have called first. I brought Emma's birthday gift, I said, holding out the carefully wrapped package. I'd like to give it to her myself. She's studying for exams. I'll make sure she gets it. I held onto the package. It will only take a minute, Vanessa. She's right there. Something cold flickered in her eyes. That's not how things work in our home, Eleanor. We have boundaries. Nathan appeared behind her. Mom? What are you doing here? It's Emma's birthday, I said. I wanted to give her her present. We're having her party on Saturday, Nathan said, glancing nervously at Vanessa. Didn't we tell you? No, I said quietly. You didn't. It must have slipped our minds, Vanessa said smoothly. It's just a small thing, family only. The words hit like a slap. Family only. And I wasn't family. As I drove home, gift still on my passenger seat, I realized that this slow excision from my son's life hadn't happened overnight. It had been strategic, calculated, and I had been too trusting to see it. That night, I called Melissa. You were right, I said when she answered. I need to do something before I lose them completely. What I didn't know then was that the truth was far worse than I imagined, and that the real battle was just beginning. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as parents and relatives jostled for the best view of Kyle's graduation ceremony. I had arrived an hour early to secure front row seats, setting up a small sign reserving spaces for our family. Melissa, who had flown in from Seattle, sat beside me. When Nathan and his family entered, I waved them over excitedly. Kyle led the way in his cap and gown, face lighting up when he saw us. Grandma! Aunt Melissa! He rushed over, engulfing us in hugs. Before I could respond, Vanessa appeared, her parents trailing behind her. Kyle, darling, we're sitting over there. She pointed to seats several rows back. But Grandma saved us front row seats, Kyle protested. Vanessa's smile never reached her eyes. That's thoughtful, Eleanor, but we've already arranged our seating. My parents need to be able to see clearly. Nathan, who had been hanging back, stepped forward with a pained expression. Mom, would you mind moving to the back? I finished for him. So your in-laws can have the seats I saved? An uncomfortable silence fell. Kyle looked mortified. You know what? Melissa stood up, gathering her things. We'll move. It's not worth arguing about. During the ceremony, I watched the back of Vanessa's perfectly coiffed head as she leaned over repeatedly to whisper to her mother. When Kyle's name was called, they both stood up, blocking my view entirely. At the reception afterward, I finally managed to get Kyle alone for a moment. I'm so proud of you, I said, squeezing his hand. Harvard in the fall. That's incredible. When did you find out you were accepted? Kyle looked confused. About 3 weeks ago. Dad didn't tell you? No, I replied, keeping my voice light despite the familiar stab of exclusion. But it's wonderful news. I wanted to call you myself, but he stopped abruptly as Vanessa approached. Later that evening, I excused myself to find the restroom. Inside a stall, I heard the door open and recognized Vanessa's voice, followed by her mother's distinctive laugh. Just need to tolerate her until we get the beach house transferred to Nathan's name, as Robert originally planned, Vanessa was saying. I've suggested creating a family trust for the property, and she seems to be considering it. After that, we can finally cut her out completely. What about the doctor daughter? Her mother asked. Won't she interfere? Vanessa laughed. Melissa? I've been convincing Nathan for years that she's as controlling as her mother. They barely speak without my intervention. Then I heard Nathan's voice, so close he must have been standing right outside the women's restroom. Vanessa, maybe we're being a bit harsh. Darling. Trust me, Vanessa interrupted. It's for the children's sake. My hand trembling, I pulled out my phone. 3 weeks earlier, after consulting with Melissa about my growing concerns, I'd started recording important conversations, never expecting to capture something like this. As they moved away, I leaned against the wall, legs suddenly weak. The beach house, the property Robert and I had purchased 40 years ago, where we'd spent every summer, that was what this was all about. I pressed stop on the recording app, my mind racing. My late husband's voice seemed to echo, Eleanor, make sure the beach house stays in your name. It's your security. I had never understood his insistence until now. As I left the restroom, I saw Melissa talking to Kyle. When she spotted me, she hurried over. Mom, you look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, I whispered. I've seen the truth. In the car driving home, I played the recording for Melissa. She listened in silence, her expression darkening. I knew something was wrong, she said finally. But this is calculated, predatory. The beach house, I murmured. All this time, it was about the beach house. Melissa's voice was steel. No, Mom, it's about control. The beach house is just the prize. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept Robert's personal effects. Among them was a small key I'd never used, labeled safe deposit box. Tomorrow, I would visit the bank. Something told me my late husband had left me more than just memories. The game was about to change. The bank manager led me to a small, windowless room. Take all the time you need, Mrs. Sullivan, he said, placing the safe deposit box on the table before quietly closing the door behind him. For 5 years, I'd avoided opening this box. Robert had mentioned it once, shortly before his death. There's paperwork in my safe deposit box. You'll know when it's time. My fingers trembled as I turned the key. Inside lay several manila folders, each labeled in Robert's precise handwriting. Financial records, property deeds, correspondence, and one simply marked, for Eleanor when the time comes. I reached for the last folder first. Inside was a sealed envelope with "to be opened 3+ years after my passing" written across it. Breaking the seal, I pulled out several handwritten pages, immediately recognizing my husband's distinctive script. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, something has happened to make you doubt our family's dynamics. I've suspected for years that Vanessa has been systematically isolating Nathan and manipulating circumstances to her advantage. I've documented what I've observed in the attached journal, but didn't confront the situation directly for fear of driving Nathan further away. I must confess something that has weighed heavily on me. 3 years ago, Vanessa approached me about investing in Nathan's tech startup. She insisted the money come through an anonymous investment fund, claiming it would hurt Nathan's pride to know his father was helping him. Against my better judgment, I agreed, making the investment through a holding company William helped establish. This deception has troubled me deeply, but Vanessa convinced me it was best for Nathan's self-esteem. I now believe her real motivation was to maintain the narrative that she alone believes in Nathan's potential, thereby keeping him emotionally dependent on her approval. The beach house remains solely in your name, despite Vanessa's repeated attempts to have it included in joint financial planning with Nathan. I've instructed William to resist any changes to this arrangement. The property is your security and legacy. I've established a separate trust fund for you, known only to William and myself. Contact him when you're ready. Remember, Eleanor, you are stronger than you know. Use wisdom, not anger, when you decide how to proceed. All my love, Robert attached was a small leather journal spanning the last 7 years of Robert's life, meticulously documenting instances of Vanessa's manipulative behavior. The financial records folder contained documentation of Robert's anonymous investment in Nathan's company, $750,000 channeled through a shell corporation. The property deeds folder contained papers for the beach house, with multiple notations from our lawyer rejecting proposed changes to the ownership structure, changes requested by Nathan and Vanessa, without my knowledge. I sat back, feeling as if the air had been knocked from my lungs. All these years, I'd attributed the growing distance to natural family evolution. The truth was far more calculated. That afternoon, I sat in William Harris's office, the contents of the safe deposit box spread between us. Our family lawyer for over 30 years. William had been Robert's closest friend since college. Robert saw this coming, William confirmed, adjusting his glasses. He predicted that after his death, the pressure on you would increase. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. William sighed. Robert made me promise to let you discover it on your own terms. He said if I approached you too soon, you might dismiss it as paranoia or feel forced to take sides before you were ready. And the separate trust fund? William nodded, pulling a file from his drawer. Established 5 years ago with $1.2 million from Robert's personal investments funds that weren't included in the will or any public documentation. It's been conservatively managed and has grown to approximately $1.5 million now. And the beach house is exclusively yours, Eleanor. Despite numerous attempts by Vanessa to include it in joint planning sessions, Robert was adamant it remained separate. The property has appreciated significantly, by the way. That new marina development nearby has driven up real estate values. Marina development? This was news to me. William raised an eyebrow. You didn't know? They broke ground last year. Properties in that area have nearly doubled in value. A piece clicked into place. That's why they've been pushing about the beach house recently. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. For 5 years, I'd been a passive participant in my own exclusion. Now, with Robert's posthumous support and the truth laid bare, I had choices to make. My phone rang Nathan's number. For the first time in years, I let it go to voicemail, no longer willing to accept the scraps of attention thrown my way. I was done being invisible. $40,000 for new kitchen appliances, $25,000 for bathroom renovations, another $30,000 for landscaping. I reviewed the estimates with William over lunch at the beach house, where I'd been staying for the past week. In the 2 weeks since discovering Robert's documents, I'd developed a methodical plan. The beach house, the property Vanessa coveted, would be my chessboard. I've spoken with contractors, I continued. Work begins next week. By summer, this place will be transformed. And you're sure about the other matter? William asked carefully. I nodded, sliding a document across the table. I want to establish the family trust for the beach house exactly as Robert intended, equal shares for both my children and all 3 grandchildren when they turn 25, but with one crucial addition. William scanned the document. A usage clause requiring family vote for any major decisions, including sale, and prohibiting any single family member from purchasing others' shares for at least 15 years. This house should bring the family together, not become a real estate investment, I explained. Robert would be proud, William commented. You're protecting the property without using it as a weapon. Oh, I have other weapons, I said, surprising myself with my calm determination. Speaking of which, how did your conversation with Nathan's business partners go? William's expression turned serious. They were shocked to learn about the initial anonymous investment. Nathan had told them the seed money came from his and Vanessa's personal savings. They're not pleased about the misrepresentation, especially now that they're considering an IPO. I winced. And did you make my offer clear? Yes. You're willing to sign documentation confirming the investment was a gift from Robert, with no ownership strings attached. They seemed relieved. Good. I don't want to hurt Nathan's company. I just want him to know the truth about who really supported his dream. After William left, I walked along the beach, remembering summers when the children were small. Nathan teaching Kyle to build sandcastles, Melissa reading under an umbrella, Robert grilling on the deck. The memories strengthened my resolve. Back at the house, I created new social media accounts, something Melissa had helped me with during her last visit. Mom, you need to establish direct channels to the kids, she'd explained. Right now, everything goes through Vanessa's filter. I began posting old family photos from the beach house with detailed captions. Summer 2010. Nathan directing the kids in his original play, Pirates of Silver Cove. He was so creative, wrote and directed 6 original plays during our summer stays. I knew Vanessa couldn't block these posts without raising questions. The children would see a version of their father creative, confident, independent, that contradicted the passive, work-obsessed man he'd become under Vanessa's influence. I also began casually mentioning to local shopkeepers and neighbors that I might sell the beach house. In our small oceanfront community, word traveled fast. Within days, Nathan called, panic evident in his voice. "Mom, Mrs. Peterson said you're selling the beach house. That can't be right." I kept my tone casual. "I'm considering it. The place needs significant updates, and none of you seem particularly attached to it anymore." "That's not true. The kids love that house. It's part of our family history." "Is it?" Vanessa made it clear last summer that the house was outdated and the children's schedules were too busy for beach vacations. She didn't mean Nathan, I interrupted gently. "When was the last time you made a decision without consulting Vanessa first?" The silence that followed was deafening. "I need to think about my future," I continued. "I'm only 62. I might live another 30 years. The beach house represents significant capital that could be invested elsewhere." "Mom, please don't do anything hasty. Let's talk about this." "I'd be happy to. In fact, why don't we all spend a week at the beach house this summer? A family meeting about its future sounds appropriate." I'll have to check with Vanessa about our schedule." "Of course you will. Let me know what your wife decides about your family's calendar." After we hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. "Grandma, is it true you might sell the beach house? Some of my best memories are from summers there." For the first time in months, I was having direct communication with my grandson without Vanessa's interference. I responded carefully. "I'm considering all options, Kyle. The house needs significant updating, and it seemed like everyone had outgrown our summer traditions." His reply came quickly. "I haven't outgrown anything. I was told you wanted space and preferred having the house to yourself these days." Another lie exposed. I felt a mix of vindication and heartbreak. By the time I returned to my main residence a week later, the renovation plans were finalized. Social media bridges to my grandchildren were established, and the seeds of doubt about Vanessa's narrative had been planted. The invisible woman was about to become very visible indeed. The transformation was more dramatic than I'd anticipated. Standing before the full-length mirror in my bedroom, I barely recognized myself. Gone was the softly permed gray hair I'd worn for decades, replaced by a sleek silver bob that framed my face sharply. My comfortable, forgettable clothes had been exchanged for tailored linen pants and a silk blouse in a vibrant teal that made my eyes pop. "You look incredible, Eleanor," said Caroline, my new personal stylist, a luxury I'd never considered before now. Professional, confident, but still approachable. The physical transformation was just one element of my preparation. Over the 3 months since discovering Robert's documents, I'd systematically reconstructed myself from the inside out. I enrolled in technology classes at the community college, determined to navigate the digital world with the same confidence I'd once commanded in literature seminars. My professor, a patient young woman named Aisha, had been impressed by my quick progress. The beach house renovations were nearly complete. The contractors had sent weekly updates with photos showing the transformation. The dated kitchen now gleamed with high-end appliances. The bathrooms featured walk-in showers and heated floors. The deck had been expanded to accommodate larger family gatherings. I'd preserved the house's character while modernizing its features, a metaphor perhaps for my own reinvention. Now, 2 weeks before the family gathering, I walked through my condo making final preparations. My phone buzzed with a text from William. Nathan called again, asking questions about Robert's investment in his company, becoming suspicious. I wasn't surprised. The seeds I'd planted were taking root. Nathan's business partners, concerned about the misrepresented seed funding as they prepared for their IPO, had started asking pointed questions. Vanessa couldn't control that narrative. My phone rang Melissa. "I just had the strangest conversation with Emma," she said without preamble. "She called me directly, Mom. Asked if we could have lunch when I'm in town for the beach week." "That's wonderful," I replied, genuinely pleased. "What prompted this?" "Your social media strategy is working. She saw those posts about the summers I taught her to paint seashells. Said she never knew I was artistic. Vanessa apparently told the kids I was too serious for creative pursuits. Another lie exposed, I noted, feeling a bitter satisfaction. After we hung up, I continued packing, selecting items for the week ahead with strategic precision. My newly organized digital files contained all the evidence I might need: Robert's journals, financial records, recordings of Vanessa's manipulations, documentation of missed events, and intercepted communications. The doorbell rang, a courier delivery requiring signature. Inside the package was a thick manila envelope from William's office containing the final draft of the Beach House Trust documents, ready for presentation to the family. As I reviewed the papers, my phone lit up with a text from Nathan. "Mom, are you home? I need to talk to you. Alone." This was unexpected. In our recent communications, Nathan had been increasingly agitated about my plans for the beach house, but always with Vanessa looming in the background. A private conversation was a significant development. "Yes, I'm home," I replied. "Come over." 30 minutes later, Nathan stood in my living room, visibly uncomfortable. His eyes widened slightly as he took in my transformed appearance. "Mom, you look different." "Good different or bad different?" I asked lightly. "Good. Really good, actually." He shifted his weight. "Is that a new haircut?" "New hair, new clothes, new attitude," I confirmed. "People can change, Nathan, even at my age." His expression turned serious. "That's actually why I'm here. You've changed so much lately. The beach house renovations, the sudden interest in selling, these social media posts about the past. What's going on?" I gestured for him to sit. "I've been reflecting on my life since your father died, on the relationships that matter to me, and how they've evolved, or in some cases, how they've been deliberately manipulated." Nathan flinched. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've finally recognized patterns that have been developing for years. The gradual isolation from you and the children, the dismissal of my preferences and opinions, the constant filtering of information." "Mom, let me finish, Nathan. For too long, I've accepted being pushed to the margins of your life. I blamed myself, thinking perhaps I was too old-fashioned or intrusive. But recently, I've discovered that's not the case." Nathan's face flushed. "If this is about Christmas," Vanessa just thought, "this isn't about one Christmas, Nathan. It's about 20 years of Vanessa systematically separating you from anyone who matters to you outside of her influence. Your old friends, your sister, your parents." He stood abruptly. "That's ridiculous. Vanessa supports my relationships." "When was the last time you spoke to Craig?" I asked, referencing his former best friend from college. "Craig's busy with his family. People grow apart. And Michael from your first job? Or your cousins in Chicago? Or Melissa?" Nathan's expression wavered. "People's lives take different directions. Or perhaps someone has been steering your life in the direction that serves them best." He paced the room, agitated. "You've never liked Vanessa. You've always judged her. Have you ever wondered why your initial business funding came through that anonymous investment group? The one that mysteriously believed in your concept when no one else would?" Nathan froze. "How do you know about that?" I met his gaze steadily. "Because your father was the investor, Nathan. At Vanessa's request, with the specific condition that you never know the source of the funds." The color drained from his face. That can't be true. I have all the documentation." "Your father kept meticulous records." I held his gaze. "Vanessa insisted the investment remain anonymous, so you would believe that only she had faith in your abilities. It was a power play, Nathan. One of many." He sank back onto the couch, stunned. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm done being erased from my own family. Because your children deserve to know their grandmother and their aunt. Because you deserve to live without manipulation." Nathan stared at his hands. "I need to think about this. I need to talk to Vanessa." "Of course you do," I said, unable to keep a hint of sadness from my voice. "You've been conditioned to seek her approval for every thought and decision. But just this once, Nathan, consider whether her explanation will be the truth, or simply another narrative that serves her purposes." After he left, I sat in silence, my heart aching for the pain I'd seen in his eyes. The first domino had fallen. There was no turning back now. The newly renovated beach house gleamed in the June sunshine as I made final preparations for my family's arrival. Fresh flowers adorned every room. The refrigerator was stocked with everyone's favorite foods, and on the expanded deck, comfortable seating invited conversation overlooking the ocean. William had arrived yesterday to help with last-minute details. including setting up the discreet recording devices, a precaution he'd insisted upon. "For your protection, Eleanor," he'd said, "we need to document whatever happens this week." Melissa pulled into the driveway first, her rental car kicking up dust on the shell-lined path. As she emerged, sunglasses perched on her head, I felt a surge of gratitude for her unwavering support. "Mom," she hugged me tightly, "the house looks amazing, and so do you." "Let's hope it all makes the right impression," I replied, helping her with her bags. As we settled on the deck with iced tea, Nathan's SUV appeared in the driveway. From a distance, the tension in the vehicle was palpable. "Show time," Melissa murmured. I descended the steps to greet them, consciously straightening my posture and lifting my chin, body language adjustments Caroline had coached me on. "Welcome! I'm so glad you all could make it." The contrast between my confident greeting and their awkward responses was stark. Nathan avoided eye contact, mumbling a hello. Vanessa's smile was tight as she took in my transformed appearance with poorly concealed surprise. It was the children's reactions that heartened me. Kyle embraced me with genuine warmth. "Grandma, you look incredible." Emma, always more reserved, actually gasped. "Your hair. And is that a new outfit? You look so stylish." Even 14-year-old Josh, typically glued to his phone, looked up with interest. "The house looks different too." "Yes," I smiled. "I've made some updates. Why don't you all choose your rooms while I show your parents around?" The tour of the renovated house left Vanessa speechless. The dated kitchen, where she had always complained about the appliances, now featured a professional-grade range and custom cabinetry. The bathrooms, she'd called hopelessly retro, boasted rainfall showers and heated floors. "Of course, these updates have significantly increased the property's value," I mentioned casually, "especially with the marina development nearby." Nathan's head snapped up. "You know about the marina?" "Of course," I replied. "I've been paying more attention to local development lately. The real estate agent mentioned it might push the property value toward $4 million. Vanessa paled visibly. "Real estate agent?" "Just preliminary discussions," I said with a wave of my hand. "Nothing's decided yet, which is why this family meeting is so important." William joined us on the deck, introducing himself as Eleanor's advisor for property matters. Vanessa's eyes narrowed at his presence. "I didn't realize this would be a formal discussion with lawyers present," she said coolly. During dinner, I maintained a calm, pleasant demeanor despite the undercurrents of tension. I engaged directly with my grandchildren, asking about their interests and activities, circumventing Vanessa's attempts to answer for them. "Kyle, tell me about the Harvard summer program," I said. "I was so proud when I heard you were accepted." Kyle glanced at his mother before responding. "It's going to be amazing. 6 weeks of advanced computer science with some of the best professors in the field." "You've always had a brilliant mind," I said. "Just like your father at your age. Did you know he was offered a creative writing scholarship before he switched to business?" Nathan stared at his plate, while Vanessa quickly changed the subject. "The renovations must have been expensive, Eleanor. Are you sure it was worth the investment if you're considering selling?" "Actually," I replied, "the updates will more than pay for themselves in increased property value. The real estate market here is booming, as I'm sure you're aware." After dinner, I suggested an evening walk on the beach. The children eagerly agreed, and to my surprise, Nathan joined us, leaving Vanessa alone with William on the deck, a strategic pairing I'd planned with Melissa. As we walked along the shore, Nathan watched his children run ahead, laughing as they dodged the incoming tide. "They've missed this place," he said quietly. "They've missed more than the house, Nathan," I replied. "They've missed knowing their family history, their heritage, the stories that make us who we are." Later, as everyone prepared for bed, I overheard Vanessa and Nathan arguing in hushed tones in their room. "She's manipulating the situation," Vanessa hissed. "Can't you see that? William Harris conveniently appears with these so-called plans from your father. It's obviously a recent fabrication." "Then why did you never mention the marina development?" Nathan countered. "Or the fact that Mom's property could be worth $4 million now." Their voices faded as I moved away. In the kitchen, I found Kyle making a late-night sandwich. "Everything okay, Grandma?" he asked, studying my expression. "You seem different this visit, not just the outward changes." I smiled, touched by his perceptiveness. "I've decided to stop being a supporting character in my own life story, Kyle. It's time I reclaimed the lead role." He nodded slowly. I get that. More than you might think. He hesitated, then added, Mom and Dad have been fighting a lot lately. About you, about the beach house, about a lot of things. I'm sorry to hear that, I said genuinely. Change is rarely comfortable, but sometimes it's necessary. Like ripping off a Band-Aid, he suggested. Sometimes emotional wounds need air to heal properly, I agreed, even if it hurts at first. Morning sunlight flooded the beach house kitchen as I prepared breakfast, the familiar routine calming my nerves before the confrontation to come. William and Melissa were already up, reviewing our strategy over coffee at the patio table. The video compilation is ready, Melissa confirmed, and the documents are organized chronologically, with the most damning evidence highlighted. By 9 o'clock, everyone had gathered for breakfast, Nathan and Vanessa sitting stiffly side by side, the children unusually quiet, sensing the tension in the air. I've scheduled our family meeting for 11, I announced, pouring more coffee. William has prepared copies of all relevant documents for everyone. Documents, Vanessa echoed, her smile not reaching her eyes. This sounds rather formal for a family discussion. Some matters require formality, I replied evenly, especially when they involve significant financial and emotional investments. At precisely 11, we gathered in the living room. I'd arranged the seating intentionally comfortable chairs for everyone, positioned so all faces were visible to each other. William set up his laptop on the coffee table, ready to project onto the wall-mounted screen. Before we begin, I said once everyone was settled, I want to make something clear. What I'm about to share will be difficult for all of us, but my purpose isn't to hurt anyone, it's to bring truth into the open so we can move forward honestly. For years, I continued, I've felt increasingly pushed out of this family. At first I blamed myself. Perhaps I was too intrusive, too old-fashioned, too demanding of your time. But recently, I discovered something that changed my perspective entirely. I nodded to William, who opened a file on his laptop. Robert left a sealed box of documents with very specific instructions about when they should be opened. After the incident at Kyle's graduation, I felt it was finally time. Vanessa interrupted sharply. What incident? I met her gaze directly. The incident in the ladies' room, Vanessa, where you discussed your plans to finally get rid of me once you secured the beach house. Her face drained of color as William projected the first document, Robert's letter to me. Nathan leaned forward, recognizing his father's handwriting immediately. Dad knew? He whispered as the letter's contents registered. He knew what was happening? He suspected, I corrected gently. He documented his concerns for years, hoping he was wrong. William displayed the journal entries chronologically, each one revealing another instance of Vanessa's manipulation, isolating Nathan from friends, controlling family communications, rewriting narratives to maintain her position of influence. The financial records appeared next irrefutable evidence of Robert's anonymous investment in Nathan's company, with Vanessa's explicit instructions that Nathan never know the source. Nathan stared at the screen, visibly shaken. All this time, I thought, you told me that investor believed in me when no one else did. I was protecting you, Vanessa insisted, her voice rising. Your father wanted to control you through his money. I made sure you could succeed on your own terms. By lying to me? Nathan's voice cracked. By making me believe my own father didn't believe in my abilities? The evidence continued to mount emails between Vanessa and real estate developers discussing the marina project 3 years earlier, messages to her parents about securing the beach house before property values explode, intercepted communications where she deliberately misrepresented my words and actions to Nathan. Then came the recordings Vanessa at Kyle's graduation discussing how to finally get rid of me. Vanessa telling Emma I'd declined an invitation to her dance recital when no invitation had ever been extended. With each revelation, Vanessa's denials grew more desperate, more contradictory. These recordings are taken out of context. Eleanor has manipulated these files. The files are unaltered, William stated firmly. Their authenticity can be verified by independent experts if necessary. The final blow came when I played the compilation video decades of family footage showing the gradual transformation of our family dynamics. Early clips showed Nathan confident and creative, Vanessa charming and attentive. Over time, Nathan became increasingly passive, deferring to Vanessa in every situation. When the presentation ended, A heavy silence filled the room. Kyle was the first to speak, his voice tight with emotion. Is this why we stopped having real relationships with Grandma and Aunt Melissa? For a beach house? For control? Vanessa turned to him, eyes pleading. Kyle, sweetheart, you don't understand. Your grandmother is manipulating. Stop, Emma interrupted, her typically soft voice suddenly firm. Just stop saying that word. Everything is always manipulation with you, Mom. Anyone who disagrees with you is manipulating or confused or doesn't understand. Nathan stood abruptly. I need some air. He walked out onto the deck, shoulders hunched, as if bearing a physical weight. Vanessa's perfect composure finally cracked. Eleanor, what have you done? Are you happy now, destroying our family? I didn't destroy anything, Vanessa, I replied calmly. I simply revealed what was already broken beneath the surface. The question is whether we can now rebuild something healthier. Josh, the youngest at 14, had remained silent throughout. Now he looked up, tears streaming down his face. I don't understand. Why would you do this, Mom? Why would you keep us from knowing Grandma? As they left, Vanessa turned on me, fury replacing her usual calculated control. You've turned my children against me, after everything I've done for this family. No, I said firmly. I've simply given them facts they deserve to know. They're intelligent young people who can draw their own conclusions. This isn't over, she hissed, storming out to find Nathan. Alone with William and Melissa, I exhaled slowly, the tension of the confrontation leaving my body in a rush that left me lightheaded. You did it, Melissa said, squeezing my hand. You stood your ground. The hard part is just beginning, William cautioned. Vanessa won't surrender control easily. There will be backlash. I nodded, watching through the window as Nathan stood alone at the water's edge, waves lapping at his feet. In the distance, Kyle and Emma walked together, their animated conversation visible in their gestures even from afar. Josh sat on the steps of the deck, head in his hands. They're processing, Melissa observed. It's painful, but necessary. I never wanted to hurt them, I whispered. Especially the children. Sometimes healing requires lancing the wound first, William said gently. You've given them truth. Now they have to decide what to do with it. 3 days into our week at the beach house, the family dynamics had fractured into uncertain new patterns. The unified front Vanessa had maintained for years was crumbling, with each family member processing the revelations differently. I woke early, drawn to the kitchen by the need for coffee and quiet reflection before facing another tense day. To my surprise, Nathan was already there, staring out at the ocean, a mug clutched in his hands. You're up early, I said softly, not wanting to startle him. He turned, his face showing signs of poor sleep. Couldn't really rest. Too much on my mind. I poured my own coffee and joined him at the window. We stood in silence for several minutes, watching the morning light dance across the waves. I spent most of last night reading Dad's journals, Nathan finally said. Not just the excerpts William showed us, the complete entries. I nodded, giving him space to continue. He saw it all happening, didn't he? The way Vanessa was isolating me, controlling the narratives. His voice caught, and I never noticed. Or maybe I didn't want to notice. Manipulation works best when it's subtle, I offered. Small changes over time that seem reasonable in isolation. Like a frog in gradually heating water, Nathan murmured. Did you know that entire sections of our wedding video were edited before we received the final copy? Dad mentions it in his journal. The parts where you and he gave toasts, Vanessa had them removed because she claimed they were unflattering. I wondered why those moments never appeared in the official video, I admitted. Nathan set down his mug with controlled precision. What hurts most is realizing how much of my life hasn't been my own. My career, my relationship with my children, even my memories, they've all been filtered through Vanessa's perspective. Mid-morning, I found Emma alone on the deck, sketching the coastline with quick, precise strokes. Her artistic talent, something she'd inherited from Nathan but rarely displayed in family settings, was evident in the emotional quality of her work. That's beautiful, I said, genuinely impressed. You have a real gift, Emma. She looked up, startled, then offered a small smile. Thanks. I don't usually show people my drawings. Why not? I asked, taking the seat beside her. She shrugged, adding details to a wave crashing against rocks. Mom always said art was a nice hobby, but not something to take seriously, that I should focus on practical skills instead. Your father was quite creative at your age, I told her. He wrote plays, designed sets. He even considered studying film before switching to business. Emma's pencil paused. Really? Dad never mentioned that. There are many things about your father, about all of us, that have been overlooked over the years. That evening, as I was organizing some papers in Robert's old office at the beach house, Vanessa appeared in the doorway. Her typical polished appearance had slipped hair slightly disheveled, eyes showing the strain of recent days. "We need to talk, Eleanor," she said, without preamble. "Just us." I gestured to the chair across from me. "I'm listening." She took a seat, smoothing her skirt with practiced precision. "I understand you're upset about feeling excluded from family activities. Perhaps there have been misunderstandings on both sides." "This isn't about misunderstandings, Vanessa," I replied calmly. "It's about systematic manipulation of my family relationships." "That's a harsh characterization," she countered. "I've only ever wanted what's best for Nathan and the children. Sometimes that meant making difficult decisions about time management and priorities. Like deciding I wasn't a priority," I challenged. "Or that Melissa's relationship with her niece and nephews was expendable." Vanessa leaned forward, dropping her pretense of casual reconciliation. "Let's be clear about what's really happening here. You're angry about losing influence over Nathan, so you've constructed this elaborate narrative painting me as some kind of villain." "The narrative was constructed from evidence, Vanessa. Evidence Robert collected, evidence I've documented, evidence the children themselves have begun to recognize." Her expression hardened. "What do you want, Eleanor? Money? Control of the beach house? Name your price, and let's end this uncomfortable charade." The question was so revealing of her mindset that I almost pitied her. "This isn't a negotiation or a transaction. It's about truth and healing. I want my family back, not controlled by you or me, but free to have authentic relationships with each other." Vanessa stood abruptly. "Very noble. But let me be clear. Nathan and I have built a life together for 20 years. A few old journals and edited recordings won't change that. He may be confused right now, but he'll come back to reality." As she turned to leave, I called after her. "Vanessa, ask yourself why you're so threatened by Nathan having independent relationships with his mother and sister. What are you afraid he'll discover about himself if he's allowed to exist outside your narrative?" She paused at the door, her back stiffening, but left without responding. Later I found Kyle on the beach, skipping stones across the calm evening water. "Mom's been trying to convince me that you're having some kind of breakdown," he said without preamble. "That grief over Grandpa has finally caught up with you, making you imagine conspiracies." "And what do you think?" I asked, picking up a smooth stone and examining it. Kyle smiled wryly. "I think someone who was having a breakdown wouldn't have methodically compiled years of evidence, renovated a house, established a legal trust, and coordinated a family intervention with such precision." I laughed despite the seriousness of our conversation. "Your analytical mind is one of your greatest gifts, Kyle." "A gift I apparently inherited from Grandpa," he noted. "I've been reading some of his engineering journals that Aunt Melissa shared with me. His thought process was so similar to mine, it's eerie. He would have loved discussing your projects with you," I said softly. "He always wanted a closer relationship with all of you." The invisible woman was not only visible now, she was being heard. By the 5th day at the beach house, the fault lines in the family had deepened into distinct camps. The children, particularly Kyle and Emma, spent increasing time with me and Melissa, asking questions about family history and sharing their own perspectives on years of controlled narratives. That morning, Nathan announced he needed to return to the city briefly for an urgent meeting with his business partners. "They're concerned about the investment discrepancies," he explained. "I need to address this directly." "I'm coming with you," Vanessa insisted immediately. Nathan shook his head. "No, this is something I need to handle myself." The simple assertion of independence hung in the air between them, subtle but significant. After Nathan left, the tension in the house escalated. Vanessa alternated between attempting to reassert control over the children and making tearful appeals about being misunderstood. When these tactics proved ineffective, she retreated to make frantic phone calls. "She's calling Dad's old business partners," Kyle reported, joining me on the deck where I was reading, "trying to get them to contradict Grandpa's records about the investment." I set my book aside. "How do you know that?" He smiled sheepishly. "I may have passed by her door accidentally on purpose. She's throwing around phrases like mental decline, and elaborate fiction to describe you. Not very original, I noted dryly. Kyle laughed, a genuine sound I'd missed hearing. What's interesting is how transparent it all seems now. Like I can actually see the manipulation as it's happening. Awareness is the first step to immunity, I said. He settled into the chair beside me, suddenly serious. Grandma, I need to tell you something. Last year, when I got that internship at the tech company, Mom told me you said I wasn't ready for it, that I should focus on more traditional paths. I never said anything of the sort, I assured him. I didn't even know about the internship until I saw it on your social media months later. I figured that out now, he nodded. But at the time, it really hurt. I thought you didn't believe in me. The revelation stung. One more example of how thoroughly Vanessa had poisoned my relationships with my grandchildren. I've always believed in you, Kyle. All of you. Our conversation was interrupted by Emma, who burst onto the deck with unusual animation. Grandma, I found something you need to see. She held out her phone, displaying a text conversation with Nathan. Dad just sent this to all of us kids. The message read, after reviewing all the evidence and meeting with the business partners today, I've confirmed everything Grandma and William presented was accurate. The company's initial funding did come from Grandpa, kept secret at Mom's insistence. I'm still processing what this means for our family, but I wanted you to hear the truth directly from me. Kyle whistled low. That's huge. Dad never contradicts Mom, especially not to us. He's finding his voice again, I said, hope blossoming in my chest. Later that afternoon, William arrived with news. Nathan called me from the city. He's formally documenting the investment situation with the company board, full transparency, about the source of the initial funding. How did his partners respond? I asked. With relief, apparently. They were more concerned about the misrepresentation than the source of the funds. Nathan's taking full responsibility, including acknowledging that he allowed Vanessa to control the narrative. Melissa, who had joined us, raised an eyebrow. That's significant progress. He also asked me to prepare additional documentation for a potential separation agreement, William added quietly. The news silenced us all momentarily. Nathan was considering divorce, a possibility I hadn't fully anticipated when I began this confrontation. Is that what we wanted? I asked uncertainly. To break up their marriage? We didn't break anything that wasn't already fractured, Melissa reminded me. Nathan is making his own decisions now, maybe for the first time in decades. As evening approached, Vanessa emerged from her self-imposed isolation, her appearance meticulously restored as if preparing for battle. She found me alone in the kitchen, preparing dinner. I just got off the phone with Nathan, she announced, her voice tight. He's filled my children's heads with absurd notions about our marriage. I continued chopping vegetables calmly. They're his children too, Vanessa, and they're old enough to form their own opinions. This is all you're doing, she hissed. You couldn't stand seeing Nathan happy and successful without your intervention. Nathan wasn't happy, I corrected gently. He was compliant. There's a profound difference. 20 years, she said, her voice rising. 20 years we've been married, building a life, raising children, and you've destroyed it in 5 days with your manipulations and distortions. I set down my knife and faced her directly. Vanessa, I've simply presented the truth. If that truth is enough to devastate what you've built, perhaps its foundation wasn't as solid as you believed. That evening, Nathan returned from the city, his expression both troubled and resolute. After dinner, he cleared his throat. I have something important to share with everyone. He placed a folder on the table. These are the official documents confirming what Mom and William told us about Dad's investment in my company. I've acknowledged the true source of funding to the board and my partners. Vanessa's face drained of color. Nathan, we agreed to discuss this privately first. No, Vanessa, he replied firmly. You wanted me to continue hiding the truth. I'm done with that approach. He turned to the children. There's more you need to know. Your mother and I will be taking some time apart when we return home. I've arranged to stay in the downtown apartment for now. Josh's eyes widened in alarm. You're getting divorced? We're taking time to reassess our relationship, Nathan clarified. After everything that's come to light, it's necessary. Later, as the family dispersed to process this latest development, I found Nathan alone on the deck, staring at the ocean. I never intended to dismantle your marriage, I said softly, joining him at the railing. You didn't, he assured me. You just helped me see what was already true. He turned to face me. I don't know who I am anymore. Mom, I've been playing a role for so long, I've lost track of my authentic self. You'll find him again, I promised. The creative, confident man who directed summer plays and wrote short stories is still in there somewhere. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I haven't written anything in 15 years. Perhaps it's time to start again. The final morning of our beach house week dawned gray and misty, the weather reflecting the somber mood that had settled over the family. Nathan had announced his intention to return alone rather than driving back with Vanessa and the children, another small assertion of independence that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. I found him in Robert's study, sorting through old photographs spread across the desk. Finding some memories? I asked, bringing him coffee. More like rediscovering them, he replied, accepting the mug gratefully. It's strange I look at these photos and barely recognize myself. This one from Emma's 5th birthday? I remember Vanessa was upset because I invited my college friends without consulting her first. That was the last time I saw most of them. I studied the image Nathan, younger and more vibrant, surrounded by friends I hadn't seen in over a decade. You were different then. I was myself then, he corrected quietly. Somewhere along the way, I became a character in Vanessa's narrative instead of the author of my own life. He looked up, his expression troubled. The hardest part is realizing how I allowed it to happen. How I prioritized keeping her happy above everything else, my relationship with you and Melissa, my friendships, even my connection with my own children. You were manipulated by someone very skilled at it, I reminded him. That's not weakness, it's human vulnerability. Our conversation was interrupted by Kyle, who appeared in the doorway looking uncharacteristically hesitant. Dad? Mom's asking for you. She says it's important. After Nathan left, Kyle lingered, examining the photos on the desk. These are amazing. Dad looks so, I don't know, alive? Present? That's exactly it, I agreed. He was fully present in his own life then. Kyle picked up a photo of Nathan directing one of his summer plays, gesturing expressively to the makeshift actors on our deck-turned stage. I can't reconcile this person with my dad. It's like they're completely different people. Not different, just hidden beneath layers of adaptation and compromise. As Kyle left, Melissa appeared with her suitcase. My flight's this afternoon. I should head out soon to beat traffic. Everything's changing so quickly, I said, feeling suddenly overwhelmed. I'm not sure I anticipated all the consequences of this confrontation. Melissa squeezed my shoulder. That's because you're still thinking like the caretaker responsible for everyone's welfare. But each person's journey from here is their own. You've done the hard part by bringing truth into the light. Later, as the family gathered for a final lunch before departures, Vanessa appeared with red-rimmed eyes but perfect composure, as if preparing for a performance. Nathan's face was unreadable, though something in his posture suggested a weight had been lifted. Before we all leave, I said once everyone was seated, I wanted to share the plans for the beach house that William and I have prepared. William distributed folders containing the trust documents. As Robert always intended, this trust establishes equal ownership shares for both Nathan and Melissa, with provisions for the grandchildren to receive their portions when they turn 25. Most importantly, I continued, the property cannot be sold without unanimous family agreement, and no single family member can buy out the other's shares for at least 15 years. This ensures the house remains a family gathering place rather than an investment property. Vanessa studied the documents with narrowed eyes, clearly searching for loopholes or weaknesses. Finding none, she closed the folder with deliberate care. Very thorough, Eleanor. Though I notice my name isn't mentioned anywhere in the ownership structure. The shares are designated for direct Sullivan family descendants, William confirmed. However, Nathan's portion naturally benefits his immediate family during his lifetime. After lunch, as suitcases were loaded and goodbyes exchanged, Vanessa approached me privately on the deck. Her perfect mask was firmly in place, but something in her eyes had changed a recognition, perhaps that the dynamics she'd controlled for decades had fundamentally shifted. Nathan has suggested a trial separation, she said without preamble. 3 months while he finds himself, or whatever midlife crisis he's experiencing. I remained silent, allowing her to continue. I'm agreeing to his terms temporarily because I know this phase will pass, she continued, her voice carefully controlled. Once he's away from your influence and facing the realities of life without me managing everything, he'll remember why our arrangement worked. Is that what you truly believe, Vanessa? That Nathan can't function without you controlling every aspect of his life? She laughed softly. You've known him for 62 years. I've been married to him for 20. Which one of us has seen him forget appointments, miss deadlines, and struggle with basic organizational tasks without support? Perhaps those struggles developed because you convinced him he was incapable of independence, I suggested. We often become what others expect us to be. Vanessa straightened her already perfect posture. You think you've won some great victory here, Eleanor, but relationships are more complex than your simplistic narrative of manipulation versus autonomy. Nathan and I built a life together that worked for us, regardless of how it looked from the outside. If it truly worked for both of you, he wouldn't be seeking separation now, I pointed out gently. Something flashed in her eyes, not anger, but a moment of genuine uncertainty that she quickly masked. This conversation is pointless. I simply wanted you to know that your interference has consequences. The children are confused and hurting. Nathan is making impulsive decisions he'll regret. Is that the healing you envisioned? Healing isn't always comfortable, Vanessa. Sometimes it requires facing difficult truths. As she walked away, I felt not triumph, but a complex mixture of sadness and hope. Vanessa remained trapped in her need for control, unable to recognize how it had damaged everyone around her. Yet the family she'd so carefully manipulated was beginning to heal despite her, or perhaps because of her absence from the process. As I drove away from the beach house with William, I felt a curious mixture of exhaustion and liberation. The invisible woman had not only become visible, she had helped others see themselves more clearly as well. 1 year later, I sat on the expanded deck of the beach house, watching the June sunrise paint the ocean in shades of gold and coral. At 63, I felt more alive and present than I had in decades. Melissa emerged with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. You're up early, she observed, handing me one. Nervous about the full house? Not nervous, I replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. Just reflective. It's our first summer gathering with everyone present since, well, everything. Speaking of everyone, James just texted. His flight landed on time, so he should be here by lunch. I'm looking forward to meeting him properly, I said. Melissa's relationship with Dr. James Chen had progressed steadily over the past year, a stark contrast to her previous relationship with David, who had admitted to regularly reporting back to Vanessa about Melissa's activities. The past year had been transformative. I'd returned to teaching part-time literature seminars for adult learners that reminded me how much I loved academic engagement. I'd started a support group for isolated seniors that local social services now referred clients to. And yes, there was Arthur, the retired philosophy professor, whose gentle wit and respect for boundaries had been a welcome presence in my life for the past 6 months. My reflections were interrupted by the sound of a car in the driveway. Through the morning mist, I recognized Nathan's sedan. Nathan emerged from the driver's side, followed by the 3 children. All of them looked different in subtle but significant ways. Nathan's posture more upright, Kyle's movements more relaxed, Emma's expression more open, even Josh's typical teenage slouch less pronounced. We decided to beat the traffic, Nathan explained after hugs were exchanged. The kids were actually ready on time for once. Inside, as we settled around the kitchen island with coffee and pastries, Nathan updated me on recent developments. The company's doing well. The transparency about the initial funding actually helped our reputation in the long run. And the therapy has been enlightening, difficult, but necessary. The separation from Vanessa had transitioned to divorce proceedings 6 months earlier. After the 3-month trial period made it clear that Nathan had no intention of returning to their previous dynamic. How are things with your mother? I asked the children cautiously. Kyle answered first, his tone matter-of-fact. Mom's dating someone new, a real estate developer she met through her parents. She seems happier, actually, less focused on controlling everything. She's still Mom, Emma added with a shrug. But the therapy Dad insisted on, as part of the custody arrangement, has helped. She's trying, in her way. Josh, now 15 and in the full bloom of adolescence, had struggled the most with the family restructuring. She's redecorating the entire house, he offered. Says she needs a fresh start or whatever. After breakfast, Nathan lingered in the kitchen, helping me clean up. I've been meaning to tell you, he said as he dried dishes. I've started writing again. Just short stories for now. Nothing serious, but it feels right, like reconnecting with a part of myself I'd forgotten. That's wonderful, I replied, genuinely delighted. Your father always said you had a gift for storytelling. Later that afternoon, as the family gathered on the beach, I watched them with a sense of profound gratitude. Kyle and James deep in conversation about medical ethics, Emma sketching the coastline with confident strokes, Josh teaching Nathan a complicated frisbee trick, Melissa arranging driftwood for an evening bonfire. The beach house, once the prize in Vanessa's long game of control, had become exactly what Robert always intended, a gathering place for authentic family connections. My phone buzzed with a text from Arthur. Hope the family reunion is going well. Still on for dinner Tuesday? As I typed a reply, I reflected on how differently I moved through the world now. No longer the invisible woman, hoping for scraps of attention from my own family, but a woman fully present in her own life, with relationships based on mutual respect rather than manipulation. As the fire died down and family members drifted off to bed, I remained on the beach alone, watching waves break against the shore in an eternal rhythm that put human dramas in perspective. Our family had been fractured and manipulated, but not broken beyond repair. The truth, painful as it had been to confront, had ultimately set us all free. The beach house stood as both witness and sanctuary to our transformation, no longer a prize to be won or a weapon to be wielded, but simply a home where truth could finally reside alongside love. And in the end, that was all I had ever wanted. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.